Breaking news team coming in here. The Kansas City Chiefs re-signed Nick Bolton to a 3-year deal worth $45 million, including $30 million fully guaranteed at signing, according to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport. Let's talk about it. It's a breaking news team here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin, joined by Maddie Lane and Seth Kaiser. A little different circumstances for me here. I'm in a not my normal setup as we have to adapt and overcome here on the breaking news team, as you know, as we do here. But Nick Bolton is going to be a Chief for the foreseeable future. Maddie Lane, how do you feel?
Listen, I mean, first of all, how I start all of these. This is at 2:20 Eastern time in the middle of the day. We're trending the right direction. It's not first thing in the morning. It's not the middle of the night. Yeah, it's a Sunday, which isn't ideal, but we're trending in the right direction. So first of all, little golf clap for Veach getting something done at a reasonable hour. Secondly, listen, it makes sense. It makes sense. We'll get further and deeper into the, Nick Bolton, money, all that stuff here in a second, but it makes sense. The Chiefs were losing two of their quarterbacks of the defense, two guys that got the field, like everybody on the field ready to go, called the plays with Nick Bolton and Justin Reed. They were both free agents. At least one has to come back. And if you're looking around the NFL right now, it looks like the linebacker market may be a little bit lower than the safety market. You take the guys a little bit younger and Bolton over Reed. Like just one of those two guys had to come back. Bolton is the guy that they have called. Spags is called his quarterback, the guy, extension of himself on the field. It makes sense. So I'm not surprised at all in the slightest by this. I don't know about you, Seth.
I'm not surprised. I actually tweeted out that this is the least surprising thing so far this offseason. Nick Bolton was always going to get paid by the Chiefs. So I've cultivated something as the hater reputation. So first things first. Congratulations to Nick Bolton, a guy who has done everything the team has asked him to do, a guy who has brought some stability, who is beloved from all accounts by his coaches in the locker room. That's generational, life-changing money that he's been working his whole life to earn. Because he has a second-round pick, you don't get like that, that huge infusion of millions and millions of dollars. Congratulations to him. Well earned. He's worked hard for it. That's awesome. From a person standpoint. In terms of team building, it's not what I would have done. The thing with Bolton, and we've talked about this at length on Only Weird Games. He is, he gets the quarterback of the defense conversation that Anthony Hitchens before him got. And I think, Matt, you raised a really good point that losing him and Justin Reed in the same offseason would have been that's where you start getting into a weird conversation. And Justin Reed, it doesn't appear they're bringing him back. And that's, Jaden Hicks is like, when they drafted Jaden Hicks and then I watched his film, I was like, oh, okay. Like you're trying to, and it's not like person for person, a matchup. It's just, there's some skill set overlap there. And that's always the direction that was going to go, I think. Fair enough. For me, here's the hang up that I come through. The best the Chiefs defense has been from wire to wire in a single season during the Spags era is 2023. And I wrote about this during the 2023 season. Bolton missed multiple games. We got a chance to see a sample size with Drew Tranquill as the mic. And the defense statistically didn't really have a significant drop-off in a lot of areas. So for me, the struggle becomes, Nick Bolton's a guy that'll make some big plays because of his anticipation. He's a great tackler. He'll make some splash plays. He also, you're going to give up some plays because of him. You're going to get outrun to the sideline. He's going to, jump a route that's coming into his zone that maybe he doesn't need to jump, and then he's not going to be able to recover from it. You're going to have some stuff happen there too. And that's where the struggle is for me. I believe the way teams get themselves into salary cap trouble is with like a Jawan Taylor type contract, which I was hopeful on when he came in because of his film with Jacksonville. I don't think he's been quite as good, but he's been fine as a right tackle. Hasn't been great. And the penalties are a problem. And you're paying him $20 million plus a year. And I think you get yourself in trouble with contracts like this because you pay fine players, good players even, but not great players, relatively close to top of the market money. And now, and so I'm going to reserve judgment and see what they do with the rest of free agency. Because if they've decided to raise their cash budget a little bit and they've decided, okay, hey, we're fine. You know, we're still going to spend. We're still going to bring back Charles Omenihu. We're still going to bring back Tershawn Wharton, both of whom I would have brought back before Bolton. As much as, again, I like Bolton. Yeah, it's a joke that I'm a hater, but it really is just in terms of impact and replaceability. We've seen the Chiefs replace Nick Bolton with Drew Tranquill at Mike and been able to do it at a high level. So that's where, for me, $15 million a year, $30 million of it guaranteed. That is money. Like when people are going to say, oh, well, they can't afford to pay everyone. Okay, well, you're making choices then. And to me, like the Jawan Taylor contract is something people talk about, even though he's a perfectly decent player. That to me is a comparable thing. You're paying someone top of market money to be a perfectly decent player. I think that's how you get yourself in trouble. I hope that I look like a complete moron and he this year takes another step forward, in year 5, which is not terribly common for linebackers, but maybe. So I it's not what I would have done, but it's also 1,000,000,000%. Nate has been preparing us for this moment.
Yeah. Yes. And look, it's all concurrent for what is kind of going around as well. I do have more breaking news. We're joined by Craig Stout now.
Boom!
Craig Stout hopping on the breaking news team. Craig, first reaction to Nick Bolton signing a 3-year contract with the Chiefs.
You're paying your co-defensive coordinator $15 million a year. That's what that is. I mean, we've seen this in the past with Tyrann Mathieu. Nick Bolton has been trusted to basically make the defense right. And as we've seen it over the past 2 years, he's more often than not helped make the defense right. We can talk about all the on-field limitations. We've done that basically since he was drafted, that many years ago at this point. But the fact of the matter is the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo specifically trust him to make him right. And so there was always going to be a big number attached to this. I was prepared for more, frankly, if I'm being honest. Like I thought it was going to be even more than this. Not to say, it's kind of like when you take your car's broke and you take it to a mechanic, you're dreading the worst, and then it comes back and you're like, all right, well, I don't want to pay that much, but that's not
$150. Oh, okay.
Right. Exactly.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I think that's where we are with this right now. They needed one of him or Justin Reed, I think, back to make the defense right and operate in the way that Steve Spagnuolo went. I mean, Nick's the guy. Nick has always been the guy under Steve, so I get it. I understand it, even if it isn't maybe the amount of money that I would pay. It's 5th highest in the NFL right now, 5th highest. I think the part that I'm a little bit confused by, the Chiefs always structure these to where they can get low cap hits in the early years, and they're just taking $15 million immediately right now. So I think what that tells you is that they have more moves coming, obviously, because they signed Hollywood Brown yesterday. They signed Nick Bolton today. They were already over the cap before either one of those moves. So there are things coming, whether that be a Trey Smith extension, a restructure from Patrick Mahomes or something like that. There's more moves coming here, but they obviously feel comfortable enough with their cap situation right now to where they can just take on $15 million just straight through for the next 2 years. It's a very interesting contract structure is the part that jumps out to me.
So it's not very often. Oh, go ahead, Tuck. No, sorry. Go ahead, Tuck.
All right, real quick, Matt, before you hop in, I want to note as well, like the free agent linebacker market, starting like yesterday, has really started to dwindle with like the Nick Bolton signing, but then you had the Zach Bond contract. Bobby Wagner went back to the Commanders. Levante David re-signed with Tampa Bay. And what I noticed, and I made a point actually to Tara when we were driving down here to my parents' house, as where I'm doing the breaking news team show from now, is that like I noticed that everyone is re-signing. I noticed that everyone is re-signing with the teams, and like not a lot of people are going to hit free agency. I wonder how much that kind of went into it for the Chiefs. So when they started doing the math of seeing like this linebacker market starting to quickly dwindle, okay, who are we going to get? Let's pull the trigger here on a guy that we know the defensive coordinator is. But just wanted to make that note before we go any further, Matty.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, hey guys, it's not often that I get to be the Nick Bolton stand for this podcast. This doesn't happen for me very often. So this is pretty cool right now. MIC, am I right?
Yeah, ZOU, let's go.
Yeah. That's the reason I knew I had to hop on, so that way everyone else could be like the shining beacon as I'm like, but yeah.
It's the jury's split on this one. Let's just say I'm reading the chat, split jury on this one.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I probably fall somewhere in the middle of what everybody else is. I mean, and I think Craig kind of nailed it, right? We all know, everybody that watches the Chiefs knows and sees the limitations, the physical limitations that Nick Bolton has out there on the football field. Nobody is under the illusion that he plays the game like a Fred Warner or a Roquan Smith, where he is actively changing not only the numbers and the advantages in the pass game and the run game, but rather he is just a solid, steady piece that helps get an entire defense that, let me be very clear, is not simple in any way, shape, or form. It's got a lot of moving parts on all different levels, from the front to the back. He is the connecting tissue for all of this stuff, and the guy that gets everybody organized. We all talked about 2 years ago when Drew Tranquill was first here, stepped in for Nick Bolton. The physical play, like his individual play, looked like it probably stepped in for Nick Bolton pretty well. He looked like he did a lot of the same stuff. I think if you watch the entire defense, though, as a whole, and those reps where Drew Tranquill was playing instead of Nick Bolton, there was a pretty clear step back in terms of their communication and how on the same page everybody could be. So it's just, I want to be clear. Like, I don't think that Nick Bolton is the fifth best physically gifted linebacker whose play on the field that supports that. But in this defensive system where Spags has all these different moving parts and levers, you want to overpay for 2 years because it's only two. It looks like it's 2 years fully guaranteed. For only 2 years, you want to say it's a slight overpay? Yeah, that's fine. I think you roll that ball out there, you see what happens, and they still are going to leave themselves a little bit of wiggle room here going forward. I mean, I have to figure out what else they're going to do at the position. They'll have Drew Tranquill for 1 more year. Leo Chenal's only going to have 1 more year under contract after this. It's not like they have to be completely final for the long term for what they have at linebacker right now. So I do not dislike the move in any way, shape, or form. It's actually less than what I thought it was going to be. I saw Bond's contract number roll in and I said, oh no, because Bolton's younger. He's got a better body of work. I understand that Bond's high has been higher, but Bolton has a better body of work and he's younger. And I said, oh, this is bad news here, or maybe good news, depending on which side you fall. But then it came in at 15 million. I'm like, okay, like this is, whether you were anti or pro Nick Bolton, I feel like this is probably the best of both worlds. They didn't unload the wallet to get him back, and they got him back. So, like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty right down the middle, clean double to me.
Before we move further, we're going to take a break. This one probably won't be as long as the Hollywood Brown one, just because we don't also have the Xavier Worthy stuff to talk about in the middle of it. So this one probably won't be as long as that. So we'll go for a few more minutes here. On the other side of the break, I've got somebody that I want to throw into the mix here. So we'll see you after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story. Like Bryan Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Bryan Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Breaking news team here on as I'm playing a road game. I got a road game going on here for the breaking news team. Nick Bolton signs a 3-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, and we are bringing on Joshua Briscoe. Joshua, how are you feeling?
Man, guys, I mean, after the day we had yesterday, who would have thought the worst news of the weekend would have come on Sunday?
Oh, God. Yesterday
That was
turned around.
Joshua Briscoe. Thank you for Joshua joining
He
us.
left.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
That's all he
wanted
had.
to say.
That's all he needed.
That's all he wanted to say. Like, look, I appreciate wanting to get in a good joke. Like, I get it. Oh, he's back now. But
I did
appreciate-
consider just leaving, but you're all here and it seems like you're having a good time. And I haven't heard what Seth has done. Seth, did you teach these jocks a lesson yet or what?
Well, I said my part, and Craig came in and he was relatively positive about the whole thing. And what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna be out here and be like,
gonna
"Well,
burst his bubble,
actually,
man."
sir."
Yeah,
No,
you are.
it's-
That's what you
it
live
is-
for. You're a lawyer.
Yeah, look, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, Josh. No,
And Brett Veach doesn't.
So I understand all this stuff. I have a few thoughts on the whole, I understand the whole quarterback of the defense thing. It is hard for me because I heard all that about Anthony Hitchens too. And so my question is, are there no other linebackers with intelligence that you
I
don't
will
have to pay
say the
attention
defense is a little bit different than it was under Anthony. Just a smidge. different.
Craig, actually, I'll
keep
take
going.
this one. No, I'll take this one as a longtime member of the Nick Bolton loving fan club. The thing that really was the death blow for Anthony Hitchens, Seth, was that he got old and even slower, which felt almost impossible at one point. And I really don't think Nick Bolton is going to get worse during the duration of the rest of this deal. This is something that Kent pointed out on Twitter, that he's one of the younger free agents in this class. So I'm sure you guys have talked about it. He turned 25 shortly, right? It's basically a 2-year deal. I saw 3 years with 15 per with 30 guaranteed. I don't like that. I would not have spent that money. I would rather have $15 million than Nick Bolton for the next 2 years. But I think that they know exactly. They know the floor. They know the ceiling. I think you know exactly who Nick Bolton is for 2 more seasons. And they're paying $15 million for exactly that guy. I don't know that guy's worth $15 million, but he's not going to get any better and he's not going to get any worse in the next 2 years. I think that's kind of the bet.
It would bug me less if he wasn't someone that can be exploited. That if he wasn't someone that can be exploited in specific matchups. That's tough for me. It's tough to swallow that he is someone that you can spread enough of the field out and isolate him and say, we're sending someone that way. He does a bunch of intangible things really well. Great tackler. Good team guy, comes downhill well, makes splash plays. And I understand the limitations of what I see, which is not nearly as much as Nick Bolton or Steve Spagnuolo. So I accept the fact that a lot of the things that he does well are things that I'm not going to see. It's just a difficult thing when you have the tangible versus the intangible becomes a difficult conversation to have. Because then it leans so close to just basically any signing that they make. I could just say, well, I mean, the reality is they know a lot more about football than I do, so it's a good signing. And Bolton does do some things really well. I just and Matt and Craig already alluded to this because I know they've spent the last few years talking about those moments where you see the things come out. I've already made the joke about, well, great, I can watch Brock Purdy beat him in a race to the sideline again. And, that's not really fair. Well, it is fair because it happened.
It happened.
But in the Super Bowl,
it's not
on a third down,
but it's fair.
And then he horse collared him because he couldn't catch Brock Purdy. He could not catch Brock Purdy in a race to the sideline. I understand he's got a lot of other skill sets that make up for that. And so it's something that I knew was going to come. What's going to be frustrating for me, and this is what I told them, Josh, I defer to smarter minds than me, both Maddie and Craig, and then especially Spags. They know much more about this than I do. Don't look at me like that, Craig. I know you hate praise, and I will.
It feels bad to be me and Tucker right now, too.
Yes, no, that's well, yeah. Look, I said what I said, Josh. I don't know what to
you
tell
did. You definitely did. I heard it loud and clear.
Well, no, they're the ones that are all pro. Like, I can't be a hater right now. But no,
you could.
All pro?
I'm outgunned. And no, and they are right about the intangible stuff. The thing, I get all that. The physical limitations bother me, and it's going to bother me when he's caught in space against – it's going to happen in a big game. He's going to get caught in space. There's going to be a pass to the flat. He's going to get beat to the sideline or whatever, and I'm going to freak out, and I'm going to just completely forget about the previous 30 plays, and that's on me. But that's going to bother me. I will be less bothered, and what I said before you got here, Josh, was if maybe they've set a higher cash budget this offseason. Maybe this doesn't stop them from making other moves. But if it becomes like, well, we could have brought back our second best pass rusher, even when he was recovering from an ACL injury,
Right.
but we really needed Nick Bolton instead. That's where it's going to bother me, where it's, like ignoring some of the other issues. Like we've talked before, the pass rush was lucky that the pass protection got all the attention in the Super Bowl because what?
Wasn't good.
Hey, Chris Jones did something great or nothing. And that's problematic. And so if they're not able to bring a little more juice there, and then if this or that, that'll be more frustrating. So I'm cautiously optimistic and acknowledge that if Craig and Matt are okay with it, I'm okay with it.
I will say this.
Adopt that for more
Tuck.
things.
Yeah, I thought I had to raise my hand. Sorry. There's two comments in the chat that I want to read back to back. I think that kind of perfectly summates this whole extension up. Chief Bearcat says, no, that's the second one I want to get to. Dave R. first says, Bolton is awesome for the defense. If you don't know that, you're an idiot. Dave R. There you go, Dave R. Chief Bearcat says, I hate it with a passion. This is the Mike Dana deal, but significantly more.
I feel like I saw that in a text just a second ago, Bear.
You don't want us to read the text.
This is the most polarizing move the Kansas City Chiefs could have ever made, I think, in the history of the world. You either absolutely love it or you absolutely hate it. That's just where we're at with this, I think.
I will say this.
Here's the thing, too. You're not swaying anyone from their position.
No, you're not. You're not. No, this is not
going to sway anyone from their position
Absolutely
about signing
not.
Nick Bolton at all. We're just relaying the news, all right? Don't hate us. We're for relaying it.
We'd be better off debating Harrison Butker.
Well, let's not get into any of that stuff. Let's
exactly. I'm here to set the standard. So now talking about Nick Bolton feels fun and cool.
Of the 10 now top paid linebackers in the NFL, there are currently 2 that don't have an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl nod to their name. One of them is Azeez Al-Shahir, or he's 9th in the NFL now, and now
good job on
Nick
the name.
Bolton, who is 5th at this point. So, that's again the whole intangibles element. It does matter. I'm not trying to come off of that. It obviously matters so much to Steve Spagnuolo, who showers praise upon him in a way that I think we've only seen with Tyrann Mathieu. That's it. We have not seen him treat another player like that other than Nick Bolton and Tyrann Mathieu. But I think that's very telling, the way that the league views Nick Bolton and the way that his stats and the counting elements and how he plays on the field, that he is now one of 2 guys. And you could look at Al-Shahir and say, well, he had a pretty good season last year, but he gets kicked out of a lot of games. He's viewed as a little bit of a dirty player, and those aren't the types of players that typically make Pro Bowls, make All-Pro nods. They don't get those sort of awards. So as you're looking through the top 10, Nick's not that guy. Nick's not that sort of – he's hard hitter, don't get me wrong, but not like a dirty player or anything. So when we're having all these conversations about being this leader of the defense, being the leader of one of the better units in the NFL over the past 2 years, yeah, that matters, but it also matters that the rest of the league is viewing him in this light, and the Chiefs paid him $15 million to do this. So I don't know. It is a very much in-between kind of take that I'm having here, but I get it and I don't.
I want to throw a big picture question at all of you guys, and you can take it whatever order you want. It takes us a step away from Nick Bolton and a step towards everything else. Obviously, they franchise tag Trey Smith and trade Joe Thuney. I think here we can now even more safely assume Justin Reed's not coming back. They picked the younger guy of the 2 sort of big money free agent candidates in the defense in that way, not including the defensive lineman. But the way this goes, I asked Nate this. I'll see if Nate wants to talk about this on Tuesday, I guess. But do you think Nick Bolton is on this team if Ronnie Stanley hits free agency? And that to me, and whatever the answer is, that to me is a little bit, first of all, it's practical. You have to handle things as they come at you. But on some level, it's a little bit scary because I think, well, if the Chiefs were waiting to see what would happen with Stanley, if that was the plan to spend money on him and fix left tackle, well, that goes off the board. So now you're keeping Nick Bolton, and you have chosen left tackle mystery box and Nick Bolton over Ronnie Stanley and Drew Tranquil or whatever that would have looked like. I don't know what step number we're on in the Chiefs offseason right now. It feels a little bit disjointed for me, but I'm curious how you all interpret that.
I'll take it first because you said the Drew Tranquil part of that. And real quick here, I think if Drew Tranquil had an excellent season, I don't know that Nick Bolton's here. And he did not. And so they very clearly made an investment in Drew Tranquil last year, not a sizable one, but enough of one to say, hey, go out there and show it. He did not. So I'm with you. I'm with you there. I can definitely see. They always have this line of progression. You know, they've got plans A through Z. I know we treat it as if each one of these things is in a vacuum. They've got all these risk mitigators throughout all of this. So that's definitely the case. But I think one of the ones is what you mentioned there. If Drew Tranquil had a good year this year, I don't think that this is on the table in the same way.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think, like I mentioned it before, when even 2 years ago when Tranquil had a better season and he had to step in for Bolton, I do think that you saw just a step back from the defense as a whole. Not significant, but there was like a small step back when he was on the field in place of Nick Bolton while he was injured, or on the drives where Nick Bolton came out and he was the one playing the mic. So there's a little bit of that. I don't think the Chiefs were ever anticipating Ronnie Stanley to make free agency. If he did, was he maybe their preferred option to spend the most money on? Yeah, I think that's possible. And I think whether that's he's a better player, whether that's the position we value more, whether it's we have a bigger need at this position, whatever it may be, I do think they would have preferred to try to spend money on a left tackle that they felt good about than Nick Bolton, that linebacker. But in terms of like breaking down what step they're on or which pathway that Brett Veach has chosen, because he always talks about all his different scenarios, I don't know if there was ever a true expectation that a left tackle worthy of this level of money would be available. And on top of that, we kind of started with this too, and I think Seth agreed a little bit. So, a little Mizzou love from Seth there. The Chiefs couldn't afford to lose Nick Bolton and Justin Reed probably. This defense probably can't afford to lose both of them, and I don't think Justin Reed's going to be cheaper by much, if at all, than what Nick Bolton was. So whether or not you have Ronnie Stanley or not, you probably need one of those two guys back. The player I would choose is Justin Reed. I understand going with Nick Bolton, though, because of the youthful aspect and the fact that he can communicate from the secondary to the defensive line a lot easier than a deep safety can.
And it's all sensible. It really is. It's just tough to not think.
And then he loses the foot race.
Yeah. And then when that happens, I just know. I remember, so after week one, Bolton had kind of a tough week one, but then he came around, he had an awesome game a couple weeks later. I remember writing about him having a tough week one, and it was some throw to the flat where, he couldn't get there on time and he got shook. And I remember writing, and in case you think this is like a one-off event, and then I played a snap from I think it was the AFC Championship against the Ravens, and it was like the exact same thing happened. And I was like, look, this is something that you are going to give up. And that's where I would have picked Reed. I think Justin Reed had an excellent season last year. And I think of the two of them, I think he's the better player. But I do think, like you said, you've got to take the entire context of team building into account. I would have gone a different direction. Although the direction I would have gone would have made Spags go crazy and kill someone, because I would have said send Tranquil to the mic, bring back Willie Gay Jr. to play that 40% of the snaps, and you know what? Half of those snaps, he's going to look incredible. Guys.
That's an aneurysm for Spags. That is a full-on aneurysm for Steve Spagnuolo.
But have you watched that guy move? Man, he's fast. Like it's a frustrating thing for Spags, I'm sure.
Bring back Joshua Uche, make Shamari Connor play safety again.
My goodness.
Like, do some things that Spags can't stand.
I bet Uche
I could feel Spags just like his heart is like slowly.
I think
Shamari Connor should go back, though.
I think he would sooner play Uche at will than he would at defensive end. He's just like, no, I'm not putting that guy there. What are you talking about? I would.
He would put him in slot corner first. Is actually what he would do.
Well, no, because then he'd have to rush the passer. So, look, I think there's going to be. I understand the idea behind it. It's actually the context of it all, where I think about what they're doing, because I understand the rationale behind making Trey Smith the highest paid guard in the league too. I get it all, but then you start seeing like, man, some of the big contracts that the Chiefs have are a really good but not top of the league guard, and a solid right tackle but not a really good one. And no one has defended Juwan Taylor more than I have, I don't think. And then a linebacker who has value but is not maybe quite a Pro Bowl caliber. You start stacking up those contracts, and that's where I just get a little, we're like, who are we paying that's, top 3 at their position? Because one of the foundations the Chiefs have had for years is that their 3 best players are arguably not arguably with Mahomes and Kelsey, are arguably 2 of the best at their position in the entire league. And the only reason Chris Jones wasn't number 1 is because Aaron Donald existed. Now it's like some of those big contracts are
unfortunate that he doesn't exist anymore.
Well, when you're out of the league. And so that's
rest in peace, Aaron Donald. I hated to learn it this way.
So that's the pushback on that side of things for me. But I get it too. And this was always going to happen, right? This was Michael Myers walking down the street towards us, and it was always going to happen. So
I really thought it might not happen.
I
actually didn't think. I definitely did not think they were going to keep Trey Smith and Nick Bolton. I would have definitely taken the split ticket on that one.
Let's wrap this one up, fellas. Obviously, I think we are feeding this horse. This is a very well-fed horse that we have here. We don't need to feed a fed horse. And look, free agency starts tomorrow. Supposedly, if everyone doesn't re-sign first, free agency will start tomorrow.
Every guy in the league is going to re-sign.
They're just re-signing. That's what's going to happen. Everyone's going to re-sign tonight. We'll be back with Justin Watson in an hour and a half to talk about him. Look, I'm still going to use that joke. I know I used it on the last breaking news team. I'm still going to use that joke because it's still funny.
Good.
But free agency opens up tomorrow, the legal tampering, the negotiation period, whatever you want to call it. It starts tomorrow. Any anticipations, final thoughts on this, and any anticipations for Monday, for tomorrow? Maddie, I'll start with you. Then we can go in a circle.
Okay. I'll start with you with the Bolton. Like, my kind of final thoughts. Anytime we start to talk about a linebacker that I think there seems to be a disconnect between people that, watch the tape, watch the film, try to break down the game, and how NFL defenses, of particularly the one of the team they are on, sees them or seems to value them. I always think back, I think it was Raheem Morris talking about London Fletcher's twilight years with the Washington Redskins at the time, and how everybody wanted him benched, and they said they tried it in practice numerous times, and the other 10 players in the field were worse every single time they tried it. So yeah, he might not be as good as somebody else, but everybody else gets worse when he's not on the field. And just that interview that I read about that, like, it's always stuck with me, and I think about that every time we get into these situations. Nick Bolton is not my favorite linebacker to watch. He is not a guy that, like, if I am drafting a linebacker, I'm writing down skills and traits I want. Nick Bolton does not fulfill the majority of them. However, I look at Steve Spagnuolo and how he talks about him and how this defense operates. They like him, and the rest of the players on that team like him, and not just like him as a person, but they like his fit with the team. They like what he does and how he gets them set up. It's an overpay from what I would consider it. But at the end of the day, if there's 10 players out there on the field and the coaching staff that are more confident when he's out there versus somebody else, how do we price that from the outside? And I understand that's not fair. You can't say they always know more than us. It's just when you can see that tangibly show up, I think you have to give it some credit. I am curious, though, if this doesn't lead to a slower free agency period from the Chiefs. I don't think any of us thought they were going to be super spending, like big spenders, but now they brought back Hollywood Brown. They're bringing back Nick Bolton. They still got to wait on this Trey Smith contract extension to be signed. I just wonder if we don't see a slow rollout, and they might not wait until maybe they sign one person in the first wave of free agency, but it might not be a lot until wave 2, wave 3, when all the contract or everybody's prices start to drop. Cause like, I feel like they're eating up the little bit of cap space they already had with some of these players coming back. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But like right now, I don't know. It seems like we're angling towards a little bit less spending, in my opinion.
I'll go next. My final thoughts.
That's not the circle, Seth.
I saw Seth kind of loading, and I'm just gonna let Seth go.
Did you say around the circle?
I did say let's go in the circle.
Sorry.
He did.
It wouldn't matter Craig talking, so I wasn't even listening.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
I could have butted in, but you know how that goes for me.
Let it go.
Me. It's Jazz's fault.
And I know how that. Okay, well, Seth, you sure you don't want to go first? Just start to get a lead on that. Yeah, look, I will say that it's more money than I wanted to see the Chiefs give to Nick Bolton. It is a lower guaranteed number, and the fact that it is like essentially a 2-year fully guaranteed deal. If it obviously won't pan out exactly that way with the cap hits and everything, but 2 for $30 is a little bit lower on the guaranteed side than I was expecting it to be. Not that I would have done it, and I think we're in a very interesting place right now, where like Myles Garrett getting $40 million today was like a holy bleep, look at that kind of moment. And Nick Bolton and Trey Smith are going to average about $40 million together on this salary cap over the next couple of years. Obviously, I'm doing some very funky math within all of that, but you need to get real impact and ideally even more than you've gotten from those guys to this point. They've been very good players on rookie contracts. Now they have to be great players on huge contracts. It's a different stage of their careers, and it's a different stage of what the Chiefs are going to ask for them. So I'm kind of lukewarm on how things have gone right now, and there's not a pure left tackle currently on the roster, and I assume there will be before free agency fully officially opens up.
Ethan Driscoll erasure, honestly.
He's a right tackle, Seth.
Dang
Ball. They've been working him on the right side exclusively. He's the right tackle of the future.
Well, Kingsley Suamataia was a left tackle, and then
they're going to pay Ethan Driscoll $120 million the last day before he becomes a free agent in a couple of years. And you're going to like it.
I will.
Cap is going up.
Okay, hold on. Let me clockwise. Okay.
You're up.
My final thought on this, I've said way too much already on it.
Agreed.
See, do you guys see Tucker's used to this. This is what my life is like.
Seth, my jabs are quick. I get in, I get out of the way so you can keep doing your thing. It's for the listener, Seth. There are people listening to this.
Well, crap. Why didn't you tell me that 7 years ago?
It's a dance.
It's a dance. I feel like it's more like being thrown at when I'm in the batter's box, but whatever. Oh, anyway. So the short story is what we're talking about. Oh, this might be a relatively inactive free agency. Hey, don't jump on the bandwagon. It just makes it worse, Matt. It just makes me talk longer. And I wish it were different. I wish I were different. But, if only there was something in my brain that could change the things that I say or do.
All right, that's Seth Kaiser, everybody. You can hear him Tuesdays and Thursdays on Only Weird Games and the Chief of the North newsletter. Craig, what do you think?
Giving Josh.
Actually, Craig, you're up next in the circle.
You're up, Craig. I was going to wait it out, Seth.
I want Craig to be the last one to talk because he's got the best stuff to say. What I was going to say is,
the last one to talk soon.
If this means a quiet free agent period, if this is part of what means that's going to bum me out a little bit because they went to the Super Bowl, but we saw all season that this was a flawed roster last year. And we've seen in past years what happens when you don't get better every season. And so that's my concern here. I just see it within the context of the entire thing. It just reminds me a little too much of just trying to run something back where I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we don't want to run that back. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they still are willing to spend a little bit of money to grab some impact guys.
I mean, at this point, am I good, Seth? I just want to make sure that I'm absolutely good here.
God.
I
you know how circle works, Craig?
I do know how the circle works, and I'm very much out of order.
And we go to Craig Stout of KC Sports Network. Right here, smack dab in the middle of the breaking news.
Oh, yeah. No, this is the worst. I love it.
I just want everybody to be comfortable.
No, I mean, I look at this. I get the move. I understand it. As I've elaborated here at this point, I know that they're going to get what they're going to get for the next 2 years. That's going to be good. They've got an out after 2 years. He will be a 27-year-old player at that point. If he improves in a measurable way, they still have the ability to keep a guy like that, keep the defense together. I understand all of this. What I'm looking at is that at 2 o'clock in the best time zone that exists right now on Wednesday, they have to be under the cap. And so we have 3 days, less than 3 days, before now all of a sudden they've got to be cap compliant, and they are not. They are not in any way, shape, or form. So I do believe we are going to see more moves here. I think we're going to see a Trey Smith extension. I do. I know that, the tag is out there. They put it on him. I feel like that is the quick and easy move to try and get yourself under the cap to get there. Patrick Mahomes, they can go to the bank of Patrick again. I expect them to do that as well. So I feel like they can be competitive in free agency, but those are going to be the first wave moves that we are going to see. That these are realistically the first wave moves in free agency is keeping Hollywood Brown, keeping Nick Bolton. Can't wait for later tonight when they sign some, they trade for DK Metcalf or something like that. And I have to eat my words immediately. That'll be fun. But for now, it does make sense. I get the move. Whether or not I like the money, it's really not going to seem like that much money 2 years from now when a whole bunch more linebackers sign. And then he's going to be, fringe top 15 paid. And, as long as it doesn't affect him, which it shouldn't with the Trey Smith extension, I'm good with all this.
That's why you were last. Perfect. That was Craig. Craig was last. That was just perfect. That was the best way to wrap this all up. And some would say it was great.
Let's get some grades in the chat. Can we get some grades in the chat?
Get some grades in the chat. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us as we on a Sunday afternoon as we talk about Nick Bolton signing a contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's probably going to do it for this this episode. Got a call from upstairs that we need to wrap this one up because look. We'll probably be back pretty soon when the Chiefs re-sign James Winchester. We can only assume that is coming down the pipeline as well. So we'll be back anytime there's any breaking news. So for Maddie Lane, for Joshua Briscoe, for Seth Kaiser, for Craig Stout, I'm Tucker Franklin. That's the breaking news team as Nick Bolton is back with the Kansas City Chiefs on a 3-year deal. We will talk to you all very soon.
Got some more stuff, Seth?
I can't believe I got to do a podcast with Craig. I used to